Hey guys, I hope everybody is having a fantastic day, whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. I'm just glad you're here. First off, I want to take a quick second and say thank you to all the channel members. Thank you guys and gals so much. I appreciate you. And thank you for anyone who comes in to check out my knife, my EDC content. I really appreciate you. And if you're still inclined and you've got the chance, if you'd hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon down there, it would really help me out. So today I wanted to talk a little bit, kind of in depth, about Three Rivers Manufacturing, TRM Knives. TRM Knives is a USA made company, and they are a company that I became aware of based by my buddy early in the community, Sobek Scooter, who's also a big TRM fan. And he told me about them and kind of got me interested in TRM, what they did, and I wanted to find out more about them. So what I thought I'd do is I would kind of go through my evolution of experiencing TRM, how they came into my collection, what I think about the knives, the different knives that I have in my collection, which is pretty extensive as far as TRM goes. But starting off with the TRM Neutron, I would dare to say this might be their most popular knife because of the size. It's a very neutral size knife, great EDC size knife. It's the way I've got it outfitted now is not the way it came. A lot of mine have the titanium scales, which is something Three Rivers Manufacturing, also Halpern Titanium, that's how they started making knife parts, started milling scales. One of the cool things about Three Rivers Manufacturing scales is you can buy different, they might come with G10, they may come with micarta. I've bought and own so many different sets of scales for these knives because literally you take a T6 screw, a T6 screw out, that scale comes off. You don't have to touch the pivot. You take off your clip and this T6 screw and this scale comes off. So when I got this, I want to say it had like a burnt red micarta scale on it. And I picked this up on the secondary from Brother Marco. Picked it up, M-Bomb Jerky hooked me up. We did a trade. I traded him a Finch and some cash, and he traded me his Neutron 2, which has its own little history. But this was my first TRM knife. I then bought some G10 scales. I've got some tie-dye scales for it. I've given away a lot of scales because once you go titanium, you rarely go back. I do sometimes for videos just to show different price points because the titanium does add quite a bit to what would be a $220 USA made knife. What makes these knives to me so amazing for an EDC knife is their blade geometry. They are super tall flat ground slicers. They are 20 CV, or this one's 20 CV. It has very minimal branding. It's got the Three Rivers logo on the blade, and then it has TRM USA 20 CV. Titanium liner lock that operates on washers. So the knife is very stable. It's very thin, just to give you an idea on thinness, because most of these are going to be right in this area. But if we look at the blade stock, 0.0920, and the handle, which is contoured, 0.3910. So very thin little package with a deep carry clip, so it rides very deep in your pocket. Give you a couple of ideas of where the Neutron 2 falls in on size. It's a Bench-made bug out. And that's just the VV Baby Banter. So that makes this guy a little smaller than the bug out, which for me is just about perfect. Call it 7 and a 16th. with a 3-inch cutting area, 3-inch blade. Great ergonomical grip with the way that that sharpening choil is set back. So I've got a full finger choil up to here. This is the TRM Neutron, kind of the mid-size, thin TRM liner lock. The first one in my collection, which led to a very similar knife. Keep in mind, it's similar now, but when it came, it had different scales on it. It was a totally different knife. And this is the TRM Atom. The Atom is very much like the Neutron, just bigger. So everything that I loved about the Neutron, I really, really like about the Atom. The Atom is going to be a longer blade, around 3.5 inches. It's still 20 CV, still TRM USA, still has the TRM logo there. Just a great, great little knife. Got a little smuts there. Get the smuts off of it. The reason I put these little rings on it, these little O-rings, is one thing TRM does or doesn't do as well as others is their thumb studs aren't very grippy. They're kind of cylindrical and they work well. They're great for thumb deployment. But what they did is they came up with these O-rings that they sell in packs, or you can get them on Amazon, and it really gives those thumb studs grip, and it doesn't take anything away from the way that they seat in the knife. So this knife works the exact same way. If I were going to change scales, I would take these two screws off, the pocket clip, and this screw, and I could pop the scales. It takes no time at all. This knife comes in at about 8 1/16, so it's about 1 inch longer. So if we were going to look at it next to our bug out, the bug out's going to be shorter. PM2 is going to be about the same size as the Atom. The big difference is going to be the Atom is on the same platform as the Neutron, which means if I break out my handy dandy calipers, I should have 0.0910 on my blade thickness. I should have 0.394 on my body width contoured scales, and then the blade geometry exactly like it is on the Neutron. Super slicey, super pokey, full size. For those of you with bigger hands or who just like a longer knife, the TRM Atom is the longest folder in the collection. One of my definite favorites. It's also on washers. Operates fantastically well. Deep carry clip. I love it. After I picked that up, I bought the first generation of the Nerd. This Nerd is actually wearing my Carta scales. These are the BOA constrictor scales. And just to show you real quickly, on any of these knives, I'll take a T6. You got a deep T6 screw. I just take those two out. And my scale comes off just like that, right? Do the same thing with this screw and the two clip screws, and this scale comes out. So you're left with your titanium liner. This knife operates without any scales. It's a very thin knife without any scales, aka Benchmade Narrows. I'm just kidding, but very similar. It's just a titanium liner. Really cool little build. And again, for the person that likes to change out the look of their knife until you get titanium, then it's kind of hard to go back. It works pretty well. You can have a carbon fiber Nerd one day, G10 Nerd the next day, different colors of micarta after that. But this is the TRM Nerd Gen 1. So the Gen 1 Nerd had this finger pull, and it is textured a little bit here. You've got the Three Rivers logo here, and then you've got TRM USA 20CV. However, it's not very easy to flick because it's not got a deep enough lip. Well, some of the people in the TRM group, it's a great, easy to slow roll, but some of the people in the TRM group started drilling these out. And by doing that, they created, in essence, a holy nerd. So TRM, being very ear to the community in terms of what they do, instead of fighting the idea, they came out with the Gen 2 nerd, which is the holy nerd. Mine's wearing titanium. This one also is upgraded to MagnaCut over 20CV. I don't know if you'd call that upgraded. 20CV. MagnaCut. But you've got the exact same little package with now a hole in the blade and in MagnaCut. And guys, for a 5th pocket carry knife, this little knife is awesome. The blade is awesome. The utilitarian nature of the blade is awesome. The grip of the knife is fantastic. You can get a full grip on it. I can. Absolutely slicey as you would want. Super thin blade stock. I think we're looking at that same 0.9. Let's see. Yeah, 0.9 and probably a 0.34 on our scales. 0.39. Smaller knife, so this guy's going to come in probably a little bit shorter than the Baby Banter. Let's see, right about the same size as the Baby Banter. So it's going to come in a mini-sized knife. Overall on this guy is going to be 5.5 inches with a 2 1/8 inch cutting area, 2 1/4 inch blade. Deep carry clip, really small knife, but very usable on washers with now a deployment hole, which I can either thumb roll, thumb flick, or middle finger flick with a little wrist. But that's the TRM nerd, which kind of rounds out the washer slash thin TRM locking knives. So you've got the atom, the neutron, and the nerd, and they go down in size. One thing to keep an eye on as we go forward, look at the blade on the nerd versus the atom and the neutron. It's a little bit different, and we will see that again. So the next knife I had an opportunity to get on trade from Brother Pocket Metal that he got on trade was this little guy that's no longer in production. But this is an early TRM knife. I think it's the second one they produced, the second model. I do not have the first. But this is the TRM Atlas. And the Atlas is a little slip joint. And it is a little slip joint because even though you've got these dual titanium sides, each side has a couple of springs. So if I take the scale off to show you, just on the show side here, this is a micarta scale that's on it currently. But you'll see that I've got this spring, even though it doesn't go all the way across, it goes on both sides. So as I open this, this spring is displacing just like it does in a traditional slip joint. Half stop, fully open, and the spring falls down into that groove. Break it from half stop and to fully closed. So it is a traditional slip joint. It is a very whimsical knife. These knives were in stock when I first got into TRM, and when I was long into TRM, I just had not yet made the jump to consider a slip joint. I do regret that because they had these in all types of different finishes. They would offer scale packs for these little guys. Not as many maybe as the Neutron, the Nerd, and the Atoms, but you could get scale packs, and this is a great little slip joint. I keep it in a leather slip, even though it's got a clip. I keep it in this slip here. drop it in my pocket as opposed to carrying it like a 5th pocket carry knife because it is a slippy. But that's the TRM TRM Atlas, made in the USA. You got a TRM logo right there. You've got TRM USA 20CV, which is the crucible steel they were using up until MagnaCut. And them and a lot of other makers, I'll just tell you, prefer 20CV. That's just from them. Coming up next was the flagship of my collection at the time. I was going to have a titanium shadow here for this review that my buddy A to Z EDC has, but I didn't want to wait for that because this knife is exactly the same except a lot nicer with the titanium scales. These are G10 scales. This is the TRM Shadow, which uses TRM's version of a ball lock, which is called the River Lock, which in my estimation is the best bar lock that I've ever experienced for a couple of reasons. One, it is so well balanced on the close and on the open that it doesn't leave itself hanging up. It doesn't bounce back. It's got really nice spring tension. You've got these excellent conical releases on this bar, which give it a really good grip. I love the shell pivot that's captive. You've got a reversible clip. You've got deep carry titanium clip. And you've got this blade, which, as we talked about earlier, is kind of built in the same shape as that blade. That blade being our TRM Nerd. So this is the Shadow in 20CV. And its blade style is not only different, it's extremely laser beam slicey. Probably the sliciest TRM in my collection. All these have factory edges on them, but they are very, very slicey. I attribute that to the blade geometry because the blade geometry on these are so good. But the Shadow has an amazing back grip, perfect choke up grip. This is a light EDC knife. It is an absolute banger of an EDC knife, as I failed to close twice after saying it doesn't fail. That's kind of funny. But if we were going to look at this, it is going to be a little bit thicker. So if we look at our blade stock, it's probably going to be the same. 0.94. And then our handle is going to come in right under ½ an inch at 0.48. Not contoured very much, but it does have contours around the edges, which make it very comfortable, both in the handle and on the edges. It doesn't feel sharp like some other knives. MSI, I'm talking to you. But yeah, guys, great knife, the TRM Shadow using the River Lock. Which brings us to the newest TRM, and one that they sent me out to check out that I am absolutely falling in love with, that I haven't done the full review on, but it is coming because this has been in my pocket and will go back in my pocket. This is the TRM Bulldog. The Bulldog is the thickest TRM folder to date, where our blade stock is a whopping 0.1215. So it's come up in blade stock. The thickness on our G10 handle was very nicely contoured G10, 0.45. So to me, it might not be as thin as the Neutron or the Atom, but it feels fantastic in the hand. It is an extremely comfortable knife for me. Even though the blade stock's thicker, it still has wicked blade geometry. And this guy in MagnaCut is so therapeutically slicey. I went nuts on the unboxing just because it cuts so well. It uses the River Lock just like the Shadow does, and it uses it very well. They've added the deployment hole in the blade, which you can easily thumb flick, you can easily slow roll, or you can give it the middle finger flick as I fail it. The middle finger flick. This knife is just a little bit smaller than the Neutron. Maybe an 1/8 of an inch smaller, maybe a 1/16. But for me, it's a perfect size. It's going to come in right at 7 inches even, with a exactly 3-inch blade with 2 3/4 inch cutting area. Probably my favorite TRM to date. I love the size. I love the little bit more robust blade, pokey tip, the Magna Cut, very sharp, very slicey, very fidgetable. And then finally, we've got another new TRM that I debuted on the channel before, and this is the TRM Redline Fixed Blade. I think they were calling it the Redline Camp Knife. I like the Redline Fixed Blade. It is as slicey as any TRM I have, but it has got extremely robust blade geometry. It has an exceptionally comfortable handle. The handle and its just overall simplicity, the way that it's sculptured down, the way that you've got this finger chuck here, and the way that you've got this little bit of thickness that just grabs your hand. It's kind of a one grip knife for me. Feels absolutely dynamite. I've cut so much with this knife and it is an absolute joy. It's a larger knife than I normally carry, so I use it kind of as a dedicated camp knife, outdoor knife, hiking knife, because it does come with a really nice leather sheath that you can wear on your belt. This guy's going to come in right over 9 inches with a roughly 5-inch blade and a 4.5 inch 20 CV cutting area. So what you've got here is you've got this really nice full tang of 20 CV that is going to be 0.16 thickness. Very nice spine that you're working with, spine thickness. But then you've still got this very nice, tall, flat grind. You've got this finger choil that just integrates into that knobule, whatever you want to call it, on that grip in my hand absolutely perfectly. You do have a lanyard hole. People want lanyards to further help, keep the knife in your grip. It's got a great reverse grip. It's got a great cutting grip. It's just a fantastic fixed blade. The only thing I'd like to see in the future is them continue on this concept, because to me, I love fixed blades, is to make a little fixed blade EDC. I'd love to see a little smaller one about the size of the Shadow. But what a great line of knives. My favorite USA manufacturer. Since I started collecting knives, I've always kind of showcased my TRM collection as it's grown and talked about TRM as a company, their generosity, what they've done on several fundraisers that I've been privileged to be part of, different efforts for different people in the community, different groups in the community. TRM is always the first to volunteer their efforts. They're great people. Marianne and Lee, the owners, and their brood of fantastic little furries are absolutely genuine, fantastic people. They've got a great staff. Customer service is amongst the greatest that I've encountered, even though I've rarely had to use it. They're just really nice people, guys. Next time you're at a show, whether it's a local knife show, local like a Southeastern knife show, or if it's at one of the blade shows, stop by their booth, say hi to them. You won't be disappointed. But guys, that is my TRM nest, the complete nest. I love each and every one of them. I've got my Nerds, I've got my Neutron, my Atom, my Atlas, Bulldog, Shadow, Redline Fixie. They're bangers. Tried to keep it under 20 minutes and failed, guys. I apologize. Thanks for watching. All I ask is please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward. with love in your hearts and choose debate, not hate. I love y'all. Peace.